Well, hello again. There's going to be at least one more of these Rhino testing videos. Everybody rejoice. I have been kind of putting this off, even though this might seem kind of an obvious one to make. But you might find out why. I have a suspicion what's going to happen. So let's see how this goes.
2, Tally Bandit, 12 o'clock.
2, 2, 8.
Flight, engage bandits.
So there's some Messerschmitts coming in.
Roger.
We don't like them, so we kill them.
Bandit.
As you can see, this module actually has some force feedback in it. My wingman is actually doing some stuff. And as usual, I'm doing kind of a realistic test. Trying to play this like you usually would. Of course, if you're like a simulator playing God like me, then you would play like this, otherwise it might be different for you. I think he's gone. My ambient temperature is again quite high, and he's not quite gone yet actually. My ambient temperature is kind of high, so this is a relatively stressful
2,
test.
Tally Bandit, 8 o'clock.
You don't know? No.
Fort, passing waypoint 1 at 3,500.
Yeah, I'm getting quite a bit shaking here when I pull a little bit too much. Let's cut off on the sound a bit actually. This might be too loud for you. Okay, maybe now. Anyway, as I was saying, how weird that I would be testing force feedback on a module that actually has force feedback in it. Why would you ever do that? I mean, this is like kicking a body. Like I'm kicking a dead Messerschmitt or something. Anyway. As you can probably see, there's quite a bit of shakes here.
Bandit, 1 o'clock.
I actually might even consider lowering the effect strength a bit here. Come on, he's dead already, isn't he? Well, let's go after him. I don't know if this is... Well, actually I know it's really useful to feel those shakes in my hands. They're maybe a tiny little bit too shaky, like... Well, I don't know, it's kind of okay. Maybe a little more subtle would be fine. But as you may have noticed, I'm getting shakes when the plane's about to stall, but nothing on the guns and the likes. And don't tell the guys making the Telem FFP stuff, but this is actually kind of like how I like it. Like you feel on the stick what you would actually feel on the stick. And I think we can let this guy go and start again. And some of you might already notice what's going on here, even if you are the kind of people who would watch my videos. 2, 2, 8.
Flight, engage bandits.
So anyway, this is probably, as far as I can tell, this is the most popular category of simulation, at least in combat simulation, the Second World War. And this is actually the proper showcase for force feedback, because these planes have lots of force feedback stuff, lots of useful force feedback stuff like stall shakes and diminishing force when you go too slow. And then you can add lots of neat stuff, like for example when you're shooting your guns, which I don't actually enjoy all that much, but you can, it's kind of relevant. So this is like the most popular class of combat simulation and the best showcase for force feedback. So now you are asking yourself, why haven't I been doing this kind of test before? I have tried like the World War I stuff, and I've tried the modern stuff. So why not this, which is arguably the most relevant use case? And yeah, well, the answer might be because I'm stupid. Like, that's not too far-fetched, maybe. But there is another point also, because I've been doing stress testing. And like I said, I suppose even, or the brightest even among the people who would watch my videos may have noticed already why this isn't the best case for stress testing. And if you've seen this or that, and I haven't seen that properly, but I'm willing to bet that the numbers aren't high, first of all, and secondly, if you look at how I actually use my stick, I'm not doing very lots of pulling or pushing or yanking on the stick, because, well, the plane would go out of control pretty quickly, and I don't have the kind of power to keep pulling and pulling and pulling and pulling, so my controls are going to be very light by necessity, which means that I'm actually not stressing force feedback all that much. The motors are getting plenty of time to relax, like this is very typical combat. Even if I was in a total yank and bang situation, my plane would probably run out of energy before the Rhino would significantly overheat. And in a plane like this, first of all, you can't just yank like on a modern afterburning thing, but then you shouldn't even if you could, because you would be running out of energy very quickly. And you can't afford to do that in a combat like this. So basically, when flying a plane like this, you want to keep the movements as small and smooth as possible. And this is kind of a good thing. I'm going to restart again. And this is of course kind of a good thing, because like I said, this is very popular simulation environment, and this is a good use case for force feedback. So it's a good thing that it really shines in this environment. 2, 2, 8.
Flight. Engage bandits.
So if anything, if you want to be successful anywhere, this is basically it.
2. Tally bandit. 2 o'clock.
And I'm happy to tell you that, yeah, the Rhino does do really well in this kind of test. You can probably see for yourselves.
2. Engaging bandit.
Woo! Okay, this might be a bit more yank and bang now. Wow, this is proper dogfighting. And you can see how small movements I'm still making here. I'm basically coaxing my plane to do what I want, and I can't force it like I could a Hornet or an F-16. Where's the guy? Where's the dude? Those Messerschmitts aren't very impressive dogfighters, but I'm really afraid of that guy. Let's cut him just so that we can get the kill.
Forward, passing waypoint 1.
And put some stress on the joystick. I think this is pretty much over. Let's go once more into the breach.
Tally bandit, close spot.
2, 2, 8.
Flight, engage bandits.
Oh no, there are Messerschmitts on our nose.
2, engaging bandit.
Oh no, and I'm fucking up my RPMs pretty badly.
2, tally bandit.
I forgot to set those separately, so... It's a wonder I haven't blown an engine yet. And again, I'm in an actual dogfight here. And you can see how little I'm doing with my stick, actually. Well, this guy isn't very good at this game, but... I think this is still quite representative. And if you're looking there at my max deflections or just looking at my stick here, you can probably see how gentle movements I'm doing for the most part. Like now I'm not, but for the most part I'm not putting a lot of stress on the motors.
2, tally bandit.
Let's go after these guys, just for experimenting.
4, passing waypoint 1 at 3,500.
Like I'm hunting that guy now. He's much more vigorous than the Messerschmitt. And as you can see, this is basically what dogfighting is like with these planes, and I don't have the kind of energy to keep pulling, and if I try to, I immediately get shaking because the plane just doesn't want to turn like that. And this kind of diving turn fight maximizes my energy and maximizes the stress on the motors. And my ambient temperature was like what? It was like 1,000,000 degrees to start with. And I'm willing to bet that the motors are not overheating even close. And what's essentially going here is a Spitfire on Spitfire dogfight, and that's about as hardcore as it gets in World War II. That Messerschmitt doesn't do enough of turn and burn to be a challenge, so I'm hunting my own wingman. And basically, judging by my own experience, this is basically quite representative for a World War II dogfight. Where are you going? Okay, let's shoot this guy down and be done with it. Ah, he's going. He's gone. Okay, let me check the temps right now quickly. Yeah, as I suspected, it's pretty much nothing. And that was the point I was trying to make with this. This could be basically the final test, I'm not sure again, but I don't have much ideas anymore. Because, as you may have noticed already, this isn't stressful for the Rhino at all. This is like win-win situation, the best possible scenario for the stick. This is where the force feedback basically shines. If you use Telem FFP, I suppose you can get all kinds of effects, like gunfire, which doesn't do anything right now. But then you get like the feel of the control surfaces, like the stick is kind of stiff right now because I have some forward speed. And if I start stalling, I will get these shakes, which is useful and good, as well as being immersive. And then if I lose airspeed, I can feel it in my stick. Like it's getting lighter and lighter. And then of course the shaking starts pretty easily. Now it's like super light. And that's super immersive and it's useful, so it's like the best case scenario. And even better, there's no real stress on the motors. So that's pretty much it. I would hazard a guess that you can go indefinitely with this kind of stress levels. And when I started doing these tests, I made videos I would want to see myself if I was thinking about buying the Rhino. And I'm finding it harder and harder to come up with relevant stuff I still haven't done. We've done World War I stuff, which is actually very stressful, and the one place where you are guaranteed to overheat the Rhino is the Fokker DR1. Because those things they can't be trimmed, and they are like hardwired to be trimmed for level flight at 1,000,000 kilometers up, which means that when you are flying low, you are going to have to push the stick very hard, all the time. And that is going to overheat the Rhino at some point. Another way to overheat the Rhino very easily is to fly an untrimmed helicopter. But because helicopters are basically one of the best showcases for force feedback you can have, that's like criminal stuff, and the stick should automatically do a whack fuck thing on you if you try that. So that your stupidity doesn't propagate in the human genome. But other than that, continued dogfights with afterburning things that are very good at turning fuel into noise and movement. Those things, they can stress the Rhino really hard if you're going to dogfights over and over and over again. But basically even they are in trouble if you don't restart and restart because they run out of fuel. And like I said, this kind of use case where you fly these World War II planes, which is a very popular thing, I suppose, and makes good use of force feedback, like this is just really nice to feel this thing in your stick. Your trimming has an actual effect that's super immersive, fun and nice. And then of course you get the useful stuff like the stall shake and low speed warning from diminishing force on your stick. So this is where the force feedback truly shines, and I kind of knew that this wasn't going to be stressful, so this is basically the last stress test I made, because this isn't a proper stress test. It's not really stressful. So there you go. Basically, if your thing is World War II, and statistically for most of you it is, and if you like force feedback, like pretty much everybody should, because it's amazing, then yeah, good for you, because you are probably going to be golden and enjoy your force feedback stuff a lot. It works really well, gives you lots of interesting and useful effects, and it doesn't overheat too easily. So we've done all different sorts of planes, and there's not much more to do. At least until I get proper force feedback pedals, and maybe some kind of rumble chair or something like that, which I would like. Unfortunately, of course, the software is going to be kind of problematic there, but hey, maybe the Telem FFP stuff will do miracles or something, I don't know. But here's hoping. Unfortunately, it's going to get much more complicated from now, because I don't think that the regular force feedback like DirectX thing even allows for many force feedback devices, at least different devices like pedals and sticks. But one can always dream, because now that I have tested force feedback, well, I did test it 20 years ago, but now that I have this thing, my interest in force feedback has only grown massively, and I want to maximize the use. Because, yeah, like I said, this is where it truly shines. It feels amazing in a plane like this. And even in planes like the ones I've flown recently a lot, like the F-18, F-16 and the stuff, just because this feels so good naturally. There's very little springiness, it's very easy to like modify the feel to your exact wants. It's just a fantastic stick in itself, even without the effects. And when you do get the effects, it's just like another level altogether. So far, this thing like right here, it has been completely brilliant to me. And the only open question, and that will remain an open question, is if it's going to last physically, or if it's going to break down too quickly. At least much faster than regular sticks. I don't know, I hope not, because that would be kind of annoying. And I was operating a modified Cougar, and that had like maybe a 3-year cycle when it would break a spring in the gimbals and you'd have to replace them. And not much else went wrong with that. Well, I fried one motherboard, so one motherboard per 10 to 20 years is kind of okay, I guess. And if the Rhino has a similar or even better maintenance cycle, then that's of course perfectly fine and to be expected. It would be unfair for the Rhino to expect the Rhino to last longer than its competition, so that would be nice, but you can't blame it for being on the same level. But of course we don't know that yet, so we'll have to see. But other than that, there pretty much are no longer open questions about the Rhino. Some tests it passes with flying colors completely in a class of its own, like basically here. And when it does struggle, it does so quite gracefully. Like in the previous testing with maximum force on a afterburning jet dogfighting. That's where the overheating starts to happen, but when it starts to happen, it's not a disaster at all. So basically, from my point of view, the Rhino has passed all of the tests except the general durability one, which cannot be answered in like 6 months. And only time will tell. I don't really have much doubts, but as I've said before, I haven't tested it myself, so I won't start making any conclusions. But other than that, all I can say is just wow. Like, about 1 year ago when I first heard of the Rhino, it was basically something I had hoped to see like forever. And then you wait for it and the expectations are kind of high, even though I've seen lots of different hardware, so I kind of know what to expect. But when you get your hands on it, it starts exceeding those expectations, and that's kind of rare. And I have tested a lot of hardware in my life, like simulator hardware, and rarely do I find something with this high expectations that actually keeps exceeding them. So now if the only remaining question gets a satisfactory answer, I can pretty much say that this thing here is in a class of its own among simulator hardware. It does its thing so well, and the thing it does is so impressive. So I really hope this doesn't break up too easily or too quickly, because going back to spring-based joysticks would be like super ass. I just like this thing so much, and I don't want to hype it too much. It's expensive and in some ways untested, unproven technology, but everything I've seen so far is so super impressive that it's hard not to get overhyped. And I guess even if you're trying to be professional about reviewing stuff, I think part of that has to be getting genuinely excited when there's reason enough to do so. So there you have it. This is the best stick or stick base I have ever used. Well, it's the best stick, also my favorite of all time. The VKB MCGU, and this combination is just absolutely phenomenal. So I guess that's one way to end testing stuff for now. So yeah, it's expensive, but at least for me it's easily many times worth the price, and it has met all of my expectations and exceeded many of them, so there you go. I suppose it's just a proper thing to do to hype up a product when it's this fucking good. With the one caveat, of course, so there you go. Enjoy or not, probably, but that's my opinion on this thing. Maybe see you later, I don't know. Let's see.